Good morning, everybody. This is Judith A. Cope. You're listening to Mad Love. Let's get into it. So, yes, that is the heater. You will hear the heater. I don't know if I mentioned we had that surprise snowstorm on Monday, and man, I got trapped out in it. That was horrifying. It was so scary. I mean, people here already drive a little sus, even when it's not bad weather. But man, put some snow, some ice, and you're looking at, you feel like you're just playing with Russian roulette, like somebody's going to slam into you because people get impatient. They start honking their horns. It's like, what is happening? We're all just stuck here. The street is turning to ice as we speak. And nobody treated anything. There was nothing down. And if you weren't on snow, you wouldn't get any traction. And that was really, really, really scary. So, yes, we are officially in winter. And yeah. So yesterday I resubscribed to Netflix after many months, and I watched the 50 Cent Diddy documentary. I want to say first off, I think it was very well done. Obviously, very professional. I think Alexandra Stapleton was the director. I think that's her name. She was very thorough, very methodical. They pieced together a timeline. Of course, 50's executive producer, 50 Cent, so that means basically he put the money up. And normally, the executive producer has some say in the process, but they hire people that they think will do a good job and let them do their job. So I believe most of the storytelling um, responsibility would have fallen on the director. And so she did a good job. It's very well done. Like I said, very methodical. You get the feeling that Sean Combs spent a lot of time in his life not being held accountable. His mother seems like she was very aggressive, very abusive, probably had her toes in some illegal things to keep, you know, her family in, to pay that private school tuition for him. And nobody ever mentions it, but he has a sister. And I think it would be interesting to hear her side of the story or her version of events. But she doesn't talk, like she's not public. But he definitely has a sister that he grew up with. And I don't know if she's a half sister or what, but you just don't hear about her much. I'm certain he has a sister. But anyway, Puffy was at Howard when I was at Howard. I didn't know him. We weren't friends. I know that he threw a lot of parties, even at Howard. He was always hustling, making money. A lot of people that he hired were Howard grads. He met at Howard, and one story I never hear, but I know it's true, is early on in Bad Boy's history, he would and he might have yeah, he was at Bad Boy. He would make everybody meet with him in the conference room on Mondays to pray over him. As opposed to just being a good person, he would violate people's rights and make them pray over him. So, one thing that I was shocked about is he thinks he's godly. He mentions God constantly. And I mean, and there's one scene where he's on like a stationary bike. He's working out, and the guy next to him has just said that he was pretty sure that Puffy had drugged and raped him the day before, and but he didn't know for sure because they drugged him so much, and they are riding stationary bikes and watching TD Jakes, and it's like you can't think this makes up for you possibly raping the dude next to you. You know what I mean? It's like none of it makes sense. Like he's constantly talking about God, and I think he thinks he's godly, and I think he might have taken the worst part of Catholicism, which is I can confess my sins and then I'll be forgiven. Like I feel like he says, "I'm sorry, God," and he thinks that's enough to keep him from being like an evil human being. And he is evil. Make no mistake about it. There's something really depraved about him. Um, he started off not drinking and doing drugs in his early years, and somewhere in the 2000s, someone speculated that once he got cut by Kim Porter, they had a vicious fight, and he got cut and had to start taking Percocet. They believe that started his drug problems. Um, but that doesn't mean he wasn't depraved before. This just makes him more depraved. And they had a sex worker on there. The guy worked for them for 8 years. And uh, Puff has some real deep proclivities. And I also think he hates the women he gets involved with. He thinks they're beautiful. He usually is stealing them from someone else. But I think he gets jealous of them, and then he starts to resent and hate them. And it's gonna sound crazy, but I know people who fit this dude's profile. I don't know anybody who's as violent and terrible as he is, but I do know a lot of insecure men like him, a lot of delusional men like him, a lot of people who can't really, they crave power, but they can't really handle power. It's not really what they're good at, you know. And there's not one single person that's been better for knowing him. Now in the documentary, you can see he does all this stuff in front of his kids. And Puffy hired a documentary crew. He hired a crew, and that guy sold it to 50. But all this stuff that he was doing before he got arrested, he was filming it. And it's like, why are you filming this? And then finally, one person had the good sense, they were having one conversation in the hall, to be like, dude, this could incriminate you. Please stop talking. It's like everything doesn't have to be on TV. You don't have to tell everything and make everything a spectacle. But I mean, I'm not sure what he was thinking with that. That was a bad idea. And then, you know, they show all the shit that's in his room, like what was seized. So you see him walking around his hotel room with his kids, Justin and Christian, who looks a lot like him when he was young. So those two are walking around with him, and then when they arrest him, they tell what was in the hotel room, and it's like, you had your sons around this, so don't doubt that they're in on it. They're grown, like Justin's 30 at least. If he's not 30, he's very close to it. And then Christian's in his 20s somewhere, and it's like these people they're not going to be charged like juveniles. They're going to be charged as adults. And they've got their own cases because guess what? Instead of teaching them how to be good stand up citizens and possibly good businessmen, you've taught them how to be rapists. Because this whole idea that you could just drug people and have sex with them without their knowledge, that's also rape. Yeah. And there's another tale of a woman who was drugged and had sex with him, and he was showing the videos around. She was a very cute young girl too. And it's like this behavior goes back. There's a story that he beat up his girlfriend at Howard, and her big brother, you know, made quick work of Puffy's face with a group of other dudes. Like, I'm not sure this person has ever been a good person. And it speaks to fame, it speaks to money. And when people see that you have money and you've gotten famous, they just assume you're good. And I think that was part of the problem with his trial. It was fake. You got to be honest. They had some jurors and they explained their side of it. But when you're honest, the charges weren't right. The charges weren't designed to lock up a serial predator. The charges were designed to slap him on the wrist. And that's exactly what they did. They didn't charge him with the serious stuff. And how do you have a RICO? How do you have a conspiracy trial with no other conspirators? Someone had to have helped you. So like all of it has just been a scam. And when I read that the same people who brought his charges are the people that brought Ghislaine Maxwell's charges, I knew the fix was in. The government just wanted his blackmail operation. and a slap on the wrist, like stay off drugs. So you're in jail for 3 or 4 years. Now, Puffy threw a lot of money at this, a lot of money, and people don't understand money. They think that once you earn, $100 million, you will always have $100 million. Well, I don't know if this man invested his money well, but I have a hard time believing he will continue to have the money he had before he got into these legal issues, because he still has God, I don't like 20 civil cases, and he had been settling everything, but Cassie took 30 million, 20 million from him, uh, and God knows however many other people settled, because there was one guy who got 5 million because he gave them herpes, and he's the one. Nobody can find him now. But if you go back and you look at the internet, there's a guy named Jonathan Oddi, or Oddi, Oddi, and people thought he was a nut. But about in 2017, he had some sort of psychotic breakdown and went to shoot up the Trump Hotel in Florida. And when he was being interviewed, he just started going in on Puffy. And he was one of their sex workers. And people thought he was insane. And it turns out he wasn't. He was right on. And that's when all this started to crumble for Puff. It was just like a domino effect. And little by little, people just kept coming out. If you recall, if you listen to this podcast, at least 3 or 4 years ago, I was like, yo, I think Puffy might go to jail. Like, I was putting pieces together, and then people started putting his name to it. And I was like, I think there's something not quite right. There is a chance that Puffy might be the biggest, maybe not the most prolific, but certainly the most famous serial killer we've ever seen. A lot of people around him died. A lot of young, healthy people without health problems died around him. And Kim Porter's murder does not come up in this, but Biggie and Tupac, you leave with the impression that he definitely had something to do with various parts of this feud. And he would continuously get on TV and say he didn't. But, you know, I believe that he put the drop on a couple of people and made sure people were where they could be harmed, which makes you an accomplice. So I think he's an accomplice in both Biggie and Tupac's murder, because Big was trying to leave him, and then he did some nastiness around Biggie's funeral. Biggie was gonna leave. This is where you think he might have had Biggie harmed. Biggie was gonna leave Bad Boy. He was gonna do his own thing, and he could have gotten signed somewhere else. And uh, he basically made demands. Kirk Burrows said they gave in to all of his demands. They signed everything, and then like 2 weeks later, he was killed in L.A. And let's be clear, he did not want to go to L.A. He did not want to be in L.A. And Puffy was like, no, we got to promote this record. You got to be in LA. And then when he was supposed to leave LA early to go do something in Europe, Puff was like, no, cancel it. And made him stay and go to this party that he got shot at. I mean, that documentary makes it very clear that they think Puff had Big executed. So then he made Kirk Burrows go back and change the contract back to something booty, instead of what Biggie signed, and they changed the contract, and he didn't want to do it, but he did it because Puff's crazy, and Puffy made Biggie Biggie's estate pay for his own funeral. He promised the biggest funeral in the world, and then he saw the price, and he was like, "Nah, they gotta pay for it." Listen, I'm telling you, I've seen people like this before. You know, like that kind of treachery, but they lie to the public, but they're awful in private. I've seen that. There's a scene where he was all with the black people in Harlem, just hugging and shaking hands. And da, da, da. Then he gets in the car. He's like, I need some hand sanitizer, and it's not just the hand sanitizer. Then he goes, I've been exposed. So I've had like 150 hugs. I need just super hot boiling water all over me. And I'm thinking, motherfucker, you done drugged and raped all these people, and you up here worrying about some germs. You're the germ. And then that's what it makes it, that's when it seems like, oh, okay, you just don't like being around your own people. You don't want to be around common people. You grew up around common people. So this has nothing to do with germs. This has something to do with, like, yo, y'all's poverty might get back up on me, and I don't want that. And I have heard stories about people who they smile and they're the person for the everyman. I'm out here, I'm shaking hands, and then they get in the car and be like, damn, I can't stand it. Like, I don't even like being up here. You know, that is what we're dealing with. Duplicity, a phony, a fake. You know, he is one person to the public and another person in private, and both of them are pretty questionable. There's something really off with him. And you get the impression his mother was tough on him. She was trying to raise a suburban middle class kid, but she also used to apparently beat him so bad that the neighbor boy who witnessed it, well, actually, he lived with him and his mom lived with Puffy and his mom. And he said the beatings made him sick. And it seems like he may have been abused, but I grew up with kids like that. When I would tell about a spanking I got and they would talk about what happened to them, and I'd be like, damn, wet your skin and beat you with an electric cord. Jesus. I'd be like, well, my mama just hit me with a belt like 6 times. Like, I got the message. I didn't need to be abused. I mean, yeah, there were kids getting the skin beat off of them, and it sounds like he had those kind of beatings. Those are wrong. And I think a spanking is fine. I don't agree with Dr. Phil. I think something happened when people stopped disciplining their kids. But what he endured was not discipline. That was something else. Abuse is always wrong. So, yeah, people wonder about his mom. Like, there's a lot to unpack with Puff. And I think he was beat up as a kid. He was a nerd. We're basically experiencing revenge of the nerds. You got Puffy, you got all these little nerdy politicians, all these people out here who, they didn't get women. You know they didn't get women, and you know they got beat up. And their revenge, these tech billionaires, they're all nerds. So they're trying to build a society without people so they can have best friends as robots and bullshit. Like, this is fucked up. There's a lot of fucked up shit going on. If you get a chance to watch it, it's in 4 very long pieces. Like, you definitely feel like they got their hours worth out of each episode. It's dark, it's grim, it's sad because, at the end of the day, this is a young man who built something for himself, but he built it on hate and lies and evil. But he thinks he's godly, so that's really disturbing. And he references God quite a bit, even though he has that, like, I think it's either an African or a Haitian goddess on his back. It looks like Mary and Jesus, but it's not. It's something else. And I think Puffy practices dark arts. I really do. Um, if you listen to Gene Deal, uh, and there's a girl who recounts a story where Wolf and Puff were in a room and it was ice. The room got ice cold. Like, they summon spirits. People think this shit is funny. They summon demons, and then those demons stay attached to you. See, that's the difference. When you really are godly, it just is. You have to invite evil and demons into your space. And we have free will, so you can do that. And I never met him. I never even wanted to meet him. I'll be honest, I wasn't a big fan of his music. I like Biggie, 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 can't you see? Sometimes your words just hypnotize me. Hypnotize. I liked hypnotize. Um, but yeah, I wasn't a huge Puffy fan. I was just proud of him. But he came a long way. He lived with a friend of mine, the boy I had a crush on all through my time at Howard. He was housemates with Sean. He called him Sean, and he always worried. He was like, "I'm worried about Sean. He left school. I think he should have stayed and got his degree." Well, he proved that. Yeah, I mean, he out earned me and Patrick. But the reality of it is, this is a very troubled, broken human, and there are not a lot of people who have experiences with him and have come out on the better end of it. So, yeah, watch it, share what you think about it. But yeah, I think he did all of it and so much more, and I wish they had put a real trial on because he really does not need to be out in the world. But that I think the government just wanted his blackmail operation, um, just like Epstein, and they'll take it and give it to somebody else, and all of a sudden they'll be a billionaire and on top of the world, and basically just recording people doing evil shit. Puff's problem is he became a drug addict. You can't be a blackmailer and a drug addict and a sex fiend. That's really asking a lot of the operation.